Giovanni, it's your dad. Just want to say that I love you. I don't know how old you're going to be when you see this. I don't know if I'll even be alive when you see this, or even if you will see this, but I wanted to let you know that I love you. And I'm here in Lahaina in Maui. It's a place right down the street from that great big banyan tree that we visited here today. But I just wanted to take a minute to talk to you, son, and tell you that I love you with all my heart, and just share a couple things with you. This is a really special place for me because I can sit quietly and look at this ocean and reflect on life. And when I reflect on life, I try to think of the lessons that I learned in my life that I hope that you learn. Number one, always shave. Because if you don't shave, no one will take you seriously. You look like a hobo. Well, that's how I look right now because I'm on vacation. But I just left my AA meeting, and I go to AA, son, because I have a problem with alcohol, and I drink to avoid feeling vulnerable and the feelings of sadness or pain or anger or resentment. Whatever makes me feel uncomfortable, I try to often avoid. And one way that a lot of people avoid that is by using drugs. In my case, I used alcohol because it makes me feel good, it makes me laugh, it makes me forget, but it also brings me a lot of delayed pains. And alcohol has got me in a lot of trouble. I've lost everything that I've ever worked for several times. I've felt suicidal. I've gotten to some real deep bottoms in my life because of alcohol. So I hope that you're not somebody that's using alcohol. And if you are, I hope that it's not something that you use to escape feelings of vulnerability or pain or anger or frustration or stress, and that you can deal with those feelings in other ways besides using alcohol. I just left my meeting, and when I go to that meeting, it makes me feel good because I'm able to feel significant when I talk about my life. I've been sober for 3 years now almost, meaning I haven't touched a drop of alcohol at all. And but there have been other times in my life where I've had 1 to 3 years of sobriety in a row, and what's happened to me is what's happened to a lot of people. When I'm in a really desperate spot, Giovanni, when things are really, really hard, sometimes I'll get on my knees and I'll pray to God and I'll say, God, please help me get through this, and I promise I'll live the way you want me to live, and I'll follow your direction, and I'll do everything you want me to do. And then lo and behold, somehow a miracle happens, and I get out of the trouble that I'm in, I get out of that hard spot, and life starts getting good again. And when life starts getting good again, sometimes I tend to forget of what that feeling of desperation felt like. And when I forget about what that desperation felt like, and my confidence sometimes is replaced by my ego, when that happens, I start to lose track of things again, and I start to go along that crappy path that I was on before, where I make bad decisions and I might drink again or whatever it may be eventually, and that leads to more self-destruction. I'm making this video, Giovanni. I know it's probably boring. I'm making this video because I want you to know that life is going to kick your ass if you're going to learn. Most likely, some kids learn as they're growing up just on their own, but for the most part, most of us learn from pain or failure or hurt. And when you fall off your bike and you hurt yourself really bad a couple times, you realize that you can't do that same trick that you were doing unless you're cruising for a bruise, unless you might wind up getting hurt again. When you touch the stove and it hurts really bad, you know when you're a little boy that not to touch that stove again because it's going to burn you. And life has to serve you lessons through pain often in order to learn not to do certain things and to stay on the right track between the boundaries. And because I love you so much, I've never had that strength to teach you the hard way. Sometimes I've always enabled you, and I've always loved you, and I've always given you hugs and made you try to rescue when you're feeling down. And sometimes you gotta feel alone. Sometimes you gotta feel that nobody's there for you. Sometimes you gotta feel that pain, that emptiness, that moment of desperation and despair in order to learn to get strong. It's the ass kickings in life that teach us to become brave and to overcome adversity. And because I love you so much, I haven't been able to show you what that ass kicking's like. Not physically, I'm just saying you haven't really got a chance to experience what a hard life can be. And eventually that will probably come. And I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know in what form. For me, when I was 19 years old, I found myself with pneumonia in a hospital in Pittsfield, Massachusetts at Berkshire Medical Center when my parents lived in Michigan. But because I left school, my parents said, if you want to have a relationship with us, you got to go back to school. So when I was in the hospital and my mom and dad, the hospital called my mom and dad and they put me on the phone with them, my mom hung up the phone and she said, if you want to talk to me, go back to school. And she hung up the phone, and the nurses and myself, everyone thought that, oh my gosh, this lady's the biggest bitch on the planet. Grams is this horrible person, but she really wasn't. Grams enabled me from the time I was a baby until that day when I was 19 years old. In other words, she would always come to my rescue. And Grams did that out of love. She didn't do that out of stubbornness or resentment or anger towards me. She did it because she wanted to teach me a lesson that she never had the balls to teach me before. And at that moment, I knew that if I wanted to have a relationship with my parents, either A, had to do what they wanted me to do, or B, I'm just going to have to fend for myself. I eventually got that relationship back with my parents, and I did not go back to school. It took me a long time to get back with my mom and dad. But what that lesson taught me was that I'm out here alone. No one's going to come rescue me. I'm going to have to figure this thing out. So once I got out of the hospital and was starting to feel better, I went out. I got 3 jobs, Giovanni. No one was going to pay my bills anymore. Nobody was going to pay the rent to put a roof over my head. Nobody was going to pay for a car for me. Nobody's going to bail me out financially or anything when I was having a tough time. So I realized that I had to fend for myself. And so at 19 years old, I was going to the soup kitchen, churches, to get food because I didn't have money for food. I went to the Salvation Army and I bought myself a pair of dress shoes for $2. I bought myself a collared shirt for $3. And I bought myself a pair of slacks, and I went and got jobs. I went and got 3 jobs that one day. At 19 years old, I went and got 3 jobs. I went to go to the Big Y grocery store in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I went to the Pittsfield Cinema in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And I also got a job at Chi-Chi's restaurant, being a host. And I still remember this 35 years later, 25 years later. Welcome to Chi-Chi's, home of the Santa Fe enchilada. It's stacked, not rolled. The margarita of the month is the Cinco Rita. And I remember that, Giovanni, because it was such a monumental time in my life. And I had to work really hard in order to get a roof over my head and to eventually save up enough money to buy my first car. And it was a tough time, but I learned that I had to fend for myself. And I eventually started making my way through life. I got an apartment, I got my first car. I started working jobs that paid me more money, so I didn't have to work 3 jobs anymore. I worked 2, and then I eventually worked 1 good job. I got into sales, and the reason I got into sales, number 1, was at the time because I didn't know any better. But for me, I thought that it was an opportunity for me, because I'm convincing and you're convincing just like you, that if I was in sales, that if I could become good at sales through a lot of trial and error and repetition and practice, that I could make a living, that I could determine my own wages. In other words, if I work for a job where they pay me a certain amount of money per hour, whether it's $12 or $20 per hour, no matter how hard I worked, I'd still make that same amount of money. And when I got in sales, it was commission. So if I didn't sell, I didn't make anything. But at that point, I was used to fending for myself. So if I could sell, then I could make a lot of money. And so I got into sales, and I got into a really hard job, and I hope that you do this job too if it's still around when you're old enough. It was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door. It was the hardest job ever, because the door got slammed in my face so many times. People would cuss me out. People would yell at me and say, I didn't want you at my house trying to sell my wife a vacuum cleaner for $1,500. And I faced so much rejection. But what it gave me was, it gave me thick skin, Giovanni. It gave me the ability to, when I'd fall down, to pick myself up, brush myself off, and go to the next door and knock on that door. And I became a rejection specialist. I got so good at overcoming objections and so good at pushing forward when I didn't feel like pushing forward anymore, that it got me good at life. It helped me become more creative at finding ways to overcome adversity and obstacles that stood my way. And I hope that you do the same thing. I hope you find something that you get yourself into, that you don't quit, you don't give up, something that's really fucking hard. Sorry, that's a bad word. Something that's so hard. I know you always tell me to watch my mouth and don't say bad words. I got my sticky notes still all over my office. Dad, don't say bad words all day. I love you, kiddo. You have such a good heart. And when I was 8 years old, I always had a really good heart too. But somewhere along the line, I started hanging around the wrong people and going down the wrong path. And I had to go through some real hard times in my life. And those are times that I hope you don't have to go through. But on the other side of the token, I hope you do have to go through some hard times. Maybe not that hard, because I love you so much. But we've all got to find our path through trial and error, and most of the time it's through pain. And I just want you to know that I love you, kiddo. I'm going in so many different directions in this video. It's already 11 minutes long, so I'm going to wrap it up for now. But I love you with all my heart, my soul. And I hope that you travel here to this beautiful island again, here in Maui. And you remember our special times together on Mount Haleakala and the road to Hana, and I hope these things are here for you one day. But I hope that you find your way in your journey. And just know that the hard times, the pain, embrace it, because that's what's going to make you strong. The ass kickings in life that you're going to get are things that are going to be life's building blocks, lessons that help get you from point A to point B, and to help you keep your head up during times where you feel like giving up. Just remember, don't ever give up. Never give up. You can feel like giving up. You can have a pity party for yourself and say, poor me, and the whole world screwed you over, blah, 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 and have that shit for a couple minutes. But just allow yourself 2 to 5 minutes and then brush yourself off, get your gear, get your head back on your game, and go out there and figure out a plan so you can succeed and get to the next level. I love you. I wish you the best along your journey. My favorite son, man. I love you with all my heart. I love you, kiddo. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you forever. And I hope that I can be a good role model to you, so you can be a good dad to your future children. Have lots of children. Our Zago name needs to continue. I love you. I'll try to share some more videos so you know more about my life, so that way maybe you can learn from some of those things. I love you, kiddo. I gotta get back to you, Grams and Papa. I'll see you, kiddo. I love you, I love you, I love you. I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you.